Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. I want to appreciate everyone for reaching out, letting me know of my mic issues that were going on here. Please give me a little message, let me know if things are working about now. Hopefully this resolves everything. Anyway, I want to welcome everyone back. I'm going to go through my spiel once again as we dive into this MLS soccer podcast. All right, getting a thumbs up from my buddy Mike, my co-host and friend Mike. We miss you. Hurry back to us here, man. As you can see, still a little behind on the technical side of things. Anyway, to catch everyone up, I appreciate everyone sticking around. I appreciate the patience from everyone here. We thank you for joining us once again. And if you want to continue to have these conversations with us, follow us along on social media, on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, just like Omid Masudi, Chris Stratton, and Lindsay Lynn. Follow us along on Twitter at SOP Soccer, just like Timo Shaladen, the Lothian Colts, Texas Republic FC, and Yanks Ranks, as well as subscribe and like on YouTube, which I hope you are doing right now. A special shout out to Thomas DeShane. Thank you for subscribing, and you have entered yourself into our 1,000 subscriber challenge. If we hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the MLS season, we're giving away a $250 gift card. All you got to do is like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us along on our Twitter account. Additionally, if you like the logo, if you like the show, support us, or if you just, like the phrase Sons of a Pitch, go over to the website Redbubble, get yourself some swag over there. They can put our logo on pretty much anything, from shower curtains to cell phone covers to t-shirts and beyond. So go find us on Redbubble, search for Sons of a Pitch Soccer, and you can get our logo and support the show. Now, with all of the housekeeping out of the way, we're going to try and get right into the soccer once again. Now, we are talking MLS regular season. That's right. Pandemic is over, at least for the MLS, hopefully, knock on wood, that nothing comes back to bite the league in the butt. But you know what? The league has been the model for the other American sports leagues, having the bubble in Orlando, having their testing, having all their safety procedures in place. I'm hopeful, and you heard the words from Don Garber, that they learned so much from their time in Orlando, that I'm hopeful that the league can continue on with, as little disruption as possible. With that being said, there are a few quirks to the regular season. We went over a lot of them in last week's episode, so make sure you go check that out. But just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, the clubs are going to be starting with regional opponents. So take our local club here, Chicago, for example. They're going to be starting at Columbus on August 20th. The league also wants to have same-day travel, so Chicago's going to have a nice early bus ride out to Columbus, get to the field, warm up, play the game, and then hightail it back home that night. So it's going to be a huge home field advantage for Columbus in that game and for home teams throughout the MLS regular season, assuming that these kind of restrictions and guidelines stay in place. The other reason they're doing it is some states are even imposing quarantines on people who travel for more than a day in and out of the state. So it helps with the politics, it helps with the soccer, it helps with the spread, and that's how the league is going to do it. Additionally, Dallas and Nashville, they did not get to play in the MLS's back tournament, so they get to play 3 games against each other to make up for those group stage regular season games. Anyway, I don't know if that's fair to have the same 2 teams play each other 3 times, but you know what? It's a pandemic season, and we're just going to have to chalk it up to that. I think Dallas and Nashville probably are going to split these games. We already saw their first 2. You had Dallas with the early loss after David Accam comes in and plays hero for Nashville. So they lose 1-0 in the first game. And then just the other night, after what seemed like an eternity of a weather delay, you had Dallas and Nashville then play to a scoreless draw. And thankfully, I didn't stay up for that entire game. I just watched the first half and then had to call it quits and turn in so I could, be semi-productive as I work from home today, earlier this Monday, August 17th. Additionally, the last quirk of the MLS regular season, the playoffs have been up to 18 teams, and those will be played from November 20th through December 12th. So we've got a few little oddities here to keep the season rolling along as best as possible, but that's the main thing. We're having a season. There's going to be an MLS Cup champion. We've got the MLS's back tournament champion in the Portland Timbers, MVP Sebastian Blanco. Those guys are flying high. Watch out for Portland come regular season time. But additionally, there are a lot of teams who are going to be in the mix for this MLS's Cup this season just because of how the season is playing out. Anyway, let's take a look at the couple games that have already started. Nashville versus Dallas, as we said. Dallas wins the first one. The team split points in the second one, 0-0 draw. And Akam had the goal to separate them that first game. And let me tell you, the defending, just a little bit suspect for me. Let's take a look at this one here. This is a clip right before David Akam scores the goal, and here's kind of my commentary on it. This is defender for Dallas, Bressan from Brazil. I think he's doing capoeira here on the field or something because he's just flailing a leg out, and then the shot comes off of Matt Hedges' leg, or maybe not Matt Hedges, but Hedges' leg to get into the net, and that's how David Akam gets the goal. So I like to call this play the wide defenders don't get designated player money play. You've got some flailing defense, you get unlucky deflections, and Nashville walks away with 3 points. So Nashville wins the first one. Crazy weather delay means 0-0 draw in the second one. Both of those teams still kind of shaking off the rust, kind of shaking off some of the stiffness, especially in that second game. Now, Nashville also has some other news on the transfer side of things. Not just getting their first ever MLS victory. Congratulations, Nashville. You've opened up your win total here, joining top flight soccer in the United States. But they're also starting to make some moves. They announced the signing today of U.S. Youth National Team goalkeeper Brady Scott. Now, he's a 21-year-old who played over at FC Köln in the Bundesliga last season. Don't think he got a lot of time, but the fact that he was with a Bundesliga team in that professional environment, getting those training reps, getting probably some spot minutes in a few games, could only serve him well as he comes to Nashville. Additionally, he got some interest from some clubs in Belgium and Denmark as well. So it's not like this is a guy who couldn't hack it in Europe and is just trying to get back onto some roster. He's had a lot of interest from teams and ends up signing with Nashville. Plus, he's got tons of youth national team experience. Go look up his resume. The guy started in Youth World Cups. At least he played 3 games in all Youth World Cups. He's got a familiar face in one of the defenders at Nashville who was one of his youth national team teammates. So we've got all of that going on for you in Nashville. The only interesting thing about them signing Brady Scott is now Nashville's got 4 goalkeepers on the roster. Joe Willis, Adrian Zendejas, and Elliot Panico. So are they going to loan out Brady Scott? I mean, he's gotten the interest from other clubs. So maybe it's a loan deal. Maybe they just want to, keep him and develop him themselves. Maybe they end up moving some people. The good thing is, in my opinion, goalkeepers are great assets to have. Every team can have a backup goalkeeper. There's a lot of guys who can play backup goalkeeper in the MLS, but there are very few who are of quality starting material in the MLS, and you see those guys who stand out on the teams that have won the MLS Cups lately, or even in Portland. Steve Clark didn't have the best performance, but he is a better than average goalkeeper in the MLS, and his team ends up with the trophy in that unique little tournament here. So anyway, Nashville has 4 goalies. They signed Brady Scott. We'll see what they end up moving, but you know what? I consider it a glut of riches. An abundance of riches there. They're going to be able to move some of these guys around. They're going to be able to get something back for it. Now, having talked a little bit Nashville, Dallas, let's look at the MLS regular season standings. As you know, the 3 group stage games from the MLS's back tournament have counted towards the standings. So what stands out in these standings? Let's take a look at the Eastern Conference first here, and hopefully you can read the graphic. There's a few more teams that maybe the graphic would allow for spacing, but here it is anyway. Columbus Crew sitting on top. 8+ 8 goal differential. That stands out. This is a Crew team who goals were hard to come by last season. You had Higuain depart. You've got other guys who, maybe weren't playing to their potential, but they get off to a great start this season. They've got 4 wins and a draw, and they're sitting with a +8 goal differential, 9 goals scored, and then the all-important points per game. Now, points per game, to me, is a very good metric, at least when you're looking within your own conference, because we know you're not going to play every team in the opposing conference. So looking within your conference, it's a very important metric. But regardless, it's an important metric to see if you're a playoff quality team. Usually the teams who are making the playoffs are above 2.0 points per game, and those teams who are really dominating and who are going to make deep playoff runs are probably like 2.3, 2.4, 2.6 ish or so points per game. So those are just crazy good teams. So here Columbus is already sitting at that, and if you look in the Western Conference, Kansas City and Minnesota United are there as well. The other reason points per game is going to be so important is because if coronavirus, if the current situation in the United States somehow shortens the season and they got to rush into the playoffs or award a trophy and pick teams who have the same amount of points, a lot of people are pushing for points per game to be the deciding factor. So one thing to keep in mind there. But additionally, here's my surprises in the Eastern Conference. Not only is it the Crew with a +8 goal differential, 9 goals in 5 games, it's on the other end of the spectrum, Inter Miami. 0 for 5 here. 5 losses and only 3 goals scored. This is not the club that we were promised as fans of the MLS and as those excited to see Miami get the club and have Beckham come in and, give all the press conferences and have crazy transfer rumors linked with them. Inter Miami, they need something. Hopefully the hiatus during the knockout rounds of the MLS's back tournament have woken them up, because it's definitely something that we need to see from them. They need to wake up. They need to play better. Now let's take a look at the Western Conference. What stands out here? What surprises me the most? Sporting Kansas City at the top. I've always been high on Sporting Kansas City. Every year I pick them to make the playoffs. Every year I pick them as a potential cup winner, U.S. Open Cup winner, gonna, advance to the finals of Champions League. And they have underperformed severely the last 3 seasons. But you know what? They have come out on fire this season, both in the first 2 games prior to the hiatus, as well as during the MLS is back tournament. Unfortunately, the knockout rounds didn't work out for them, but they scored 13 goals over 5 games. I mean, you're looking at almost 3 goals a game there. That's a phenomenal output, especially from their roster. Like, that's what you want to see. They are going to have some defensive issues. We know that. They have an aging back line. They're probably not developing as many defensive players, and their signings are a little more attack-minded, at least what we saw in this offseason. So they're going to need that offense to carry them, but you know what? Give Peter Vermes the benefit of the doubt. He's going to know how to carry that and how to coach to those strengths. The other kind of surprise for me, Minnesota United. Look at that, sitting second in the table in the West as it sits right now. Keep on keeping on, Loons. I mean, my whole take on the MLS is you are a good team or a bad team until you prove otherwise. And right now, Minnesota has not proven they're going to be in the top of the Western Conference. But you know what? They finished very well at the end of last season. They had a good run in the MLS's back tournament, semifinalist, and now they're sitting second in the table. So Minnesota's starting to persuade me to put them in, top half at least, if not, top 5 or 6 in the Western Conference. The other kind of surprises are the goals that are being scored. Kansas City, 13 goals. Minnesota, 12 goals. LAFC, 15. We all know they can find the back of the net. And Vela didn't even play in the MLS's back tournament. And then San Jose with 10 goals themselves. Wando netting a couple in the MLS's back tournament. I mean, do we play defense in the West? You know what? Doesn't matter. They're finding the back of the net. They're keeping it entertaining. I'm loving every little bit of it. So those are a couple things that stood out to me in the Western Conference. But you know what? Here's the bottom half of the Western, or the bottom sad news of the Western Conference. The LA Galaxy is dead last in the Western Conference. I know a lot of people aren't upset about that, but I really thought that Galaxy were going to be competitive and, make the Western Conference an even more of a race. I like to see competitive matches. The odd thing about the Galaxy stats right now, though, if you really look at it, the Galaxy have 5 goals scored, which is still more than 8 other MLS teams. Now, of course, Dallas, Nashville accepted. They've only played a couple games, but still, LA has scored more goals than other teams. They just can't put it all together and get it in a victory. So it's too bad that the LA Galaxy have not been able to kind of find a good rhythm to really get them back into competition within the Western Conference and within the MLS. So those are your standings. Again, this came out before Dallas and Nashville's latest fixture. So Nashville, I think, has another point. They may have bumped the Fire into that 11th spot. Dallas has another point. I think they're still sitting in the 10th spot in the Western Conference. But that's where it sits right now. Too early to tell. Maybe there's not enough of a sample size right now to really start saying, hey, these are your contenders, these aren't. But you know what? No surprises in the Eastern Conference to see TFC sitting in the top 4, to see Philadelphia, who's had a great run of form. I guess they're kind of my foil to Minnesota in the Eastern Conference, where I'm down on Minnesota until they keep winning, but I'm high on the Union. Maybe I should be more consistent. I'll fully admit that, but could be my Eastern Conference bias showing. Anyway, in the Western Conference, though, we still expect to see Portland, LA, and Seattle they're sitting 3, 4, 5 right now. Probably too small of a sample size to really get anything out of these standings right now. But for what it's worth, here they are, everybody. Let us know what you think. Tweet at us at SOP Soccer. Email us podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. And we'll work all of that into the next one. We got some comments on the chat here. Rocky does it all. Oof, Miami. Buffer zone for SKC. Momentum sucks for them, though. Yeah, absolutely right. He thinks Minnesota will be a semifinalist in the MLS Cup for sure. And hey, I hope so. Prove me wrong, Loons fans, or prove yourselves right. Make a believer out of me even still. Rocky also says all these goals they scored against crap teams. Well, I mean, there is kind of a bit of a gap in the Western Conference, it looks like. But goals are goals. You can only play who's in front of you, right? So maybe I'm arguing against myself with that point. But the fact remains, lots of goals being scored in the Western Conference, and even then, you didn't have Vela playing over there either. Anyway, Rocky, thanks for the feedback. Keep it coming, my friend. Keep it coming. Anyway, we're going to transition away now from the MLS's back regular season, and we are going to look at some news and headlines from around the league. I want to try and start kind of a weekly segment here, showcasing something from our local team. So I'll call it Here's a Hot Minute with the Chicago Fire. Now, the Chicago Fire, I feel like they played respectable, considering they were essentially an expansion team this season, flipping half their roster, getting a whole new coaching staff in office, rebranding, almost moving to Soldier Field. Now they are going to be playing in Soldier Field because they're out of the Orlando bubble. Respectable, I guess, is probably a favorable way to put it for them. But one of their biggest questions now is in the back, their goalkeeper. Kronholm was their name starter. He is now out for the season, I think, with a knee injury. I don't believe he'll be coming back anytime soon. And if it's a knee and he's a starting MLS goalkeeper, you're probably going to want to be cautious with him. So I doubt we see him anymore. Goalkeeper has been a huge hole for the Chicago Fire the last few seasons. I mean, we all know what Richard Sanchez could and couldn't do, and then he went and played a game in Kansas City, and then we saw again what he couldn't do. They've had some bad signings in the back. Or you know what? I wouldn't even call it bad signings. They just haven't paid attention to it. Hopefully now with Raphael Wicki, he can fill the gap in the goal, and he can also continue to build up that defense to maybe kind of hide some of the goalkeeping deficiencies. Let's look at the attacking side of things. Frankowski of the Chicago Fire called up to the Polish men's national team for some UEFA Nations League matches. He already has 10 caps for the Poland national team, so he's looking to make a bigger impact there, and hopefully some of that national team mojo, vibe, good feelings, can carry back over to Chicago for their regular season. I look to Frankowski to be one of their focal points on the attack, and you know what, between him and Sapong and a couple of the other guys who may develop, they're going to have a lot of options. It's just going to be a matter of can they find the back of the net, what plagued them last season. Plenty of opportunities, but you know what? They just couldn't convert, and that cost them. And I think they've already experienced a little bit of that this season. So we're going to keep a close eye on how Chicago develops their next goalkeeper, and who they bring in for that, as well as how Frankowski handles international call-ups as well as his Chicago Fire regular season. Again, the Chicago Fire kick off at Columbus on August 20th, and then their home games will be played at Soldier Field, right in the heart of Chicago. Great to see. All right, Chicago soccer fans, there's your hot minute. Looking at some other headlines, we mentioned that there was a possible rumor last week about Vancouver Whitecaps Mbam Hwang being sold to a Russian club, and that has been confirmed. He was sold to Rubin Kazan for around $3 million, plus a 25% sell-on fee. So if he can excel the way he was supposed to in Vancouver, while with Rubin Kazan in Russia, and they flip him in a couple years for 9-10 million, part of that money is going to come to Vancouver and to the MLS. So great move getting that 25% fee in there. It's pretty standard in transfer clauses and in contracts, transfer contracts. But it's nice to see that it's in there, and it's nice to see that they still believe that Inbam can become a much better player than what he did at Vancouver. He even said it in a statement. He loved playing there. He just is upset that they couldn't get the results that he was expecting when he signed. But anyway, keep an eye on him and Rubin Kazan and see if he ends up getting moved to a bigger club in Europe, because that means some money is coming back to the MLS and to Vancouver. Some other big transfer news broke last night during the weather delay. I wonder if that was planned. We got a 3-hour weather delay. How do we keep our fans engaged? Maybe leak a little bit of FC Cincinnati transfer news. That's certain to keep the soccer fans glued to the TVs, right? So, they didn't announce the actual player names and the full terms of the deal, but we did know last night that Fatai Alashe and Kekuta Mane were going to be dealt from FC Cincinnati, and it was confirmed earlier today, Monday, that Alashe went to the Columbus Crew and Mane went to the Revs. And good on the New England Revs Twitter account for having Jerry Maguire scream, "Show me the Mane," when the deal was actually official. Anyway, how does this work for FC Cincinnati? You know what? These are a couple guys who are supposed to be at the heart of FC Cincinnati, and you know what? The results just hadn't been there. So as much as they were kind of fan favorites or like supposed to carry the club into their first few seasons and support it, the word I was reading on social media from a lot of Cincinnati fans is, look, these guys' contracts were up at the end of the year. Might as well get something for them while we could. And what did they get in return? At least one international roster spot. So Cincinnati now can go out on the world stage and bring in any type of player that they want to, because they now have the roster space flexibility for that. So good on FC Cincinnati for being shrewd in the business side of things. And you know what? I wish Alashe and Mane all the best luck with their new teams. New England also making some moves of their own, sending Wilfred Zahibo to Houston for Tommy McNamara. So now New England kind of shuffling things a little bit up, kind of restructuring their midfield a little bit, trying to fill Carlos Gil's shoes. He's out with an injury, so we'll see what Bruce Arena can cook up. But Zahibo has kind of been a guy who's been lost in New England, and we'll see if he can have a resurgence down in Houston. You know that Houston likes to run, and you know that Houston likes to get out on the attack and use offense. We'll see if Tab Ramos continues that kind of trend with Wilfred Zahibo. So there's kind of a little bit of the transfers and things moving around there. Now, the other bit of news for the league as a whole is St. Louis's name and crest had been officially announced and revealed. They are joining the league in 2023, I think is the 29th franchise in the MLS. And let's take a look at what the brilliant minds and fans down in St. Louis came up with for their new team name and logo. There it is, everybody. There's St. Louis City SC. I mean, how do you say that if you're going to, you're going to have to really think about this. You can trip over that pretty easily. St. Louis City SC, Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Like, you're going to have to really practice this if you're having, conversations at the water cooler, or if you're a broadcaster, especially if you're out at a bar in St. Louis. And I know there are a few. I've visited them myself in a past life. You're going to have to make sure that you enunciate St. Louis City SC very clearly. Now, what's neat is the SC, they claim, stands not only for soccer club, but also for soccer capital. So St. Louis has the claim to being the soccer capital of the U.S. There's a long history of soccer in in the gateway city there. I'm not too familiar with it myself, so if anyone knows it, please let us in. If there's anyone from St. Louis, we all know MLS for the Lou. The hashtag has been trending for a long time. Let us know. Reach out to us at SOP Soccer on Twitter, podcast at sonsofapitchsoccer.com is the email address. Give us a little bit of the history of St. Louis soccer and what your experiences with it are, and what's your little piece of history that you want to share. We're happy to learn more always and share it with our audience, and I'm going to be diving into it a little bit myself. Got some good friends down in St. Louis. Maybe I'll call them up and see what their take is on this crest and St. Louis. And, no doubt the history, no doubt they're going to try to do their best to put a competitive team out there, man. But this logo, I don't know. I mean, the colors, they probably had them picked out before the Fire rebranded. You're kind of getting into that same territory there. I will say I do enjoy the unique design of the shield. It's not a circle, it's not a cross, none of that. Typical type of things that you would see elsewhere. So kudos on the shape of the shield. So we actually have some comments here from Rocky regarding some of the stuff we've just been talking about here at St. Louis. Peruvian forward Jefferson Farfan has an offer from the Timbers. He would add to the deep midfield. Oh, so a little Timbers news out there. They are definitely getting in the mix. Thank you, Rocky. As he says about the logo, though, simple and classy, just like St. Louis. Ooh, Rocky, see, you're coming from Portland here. Chicago sports rivals with St. Louis, Blackhawks, Blues, Bears, Rams when they were there. Wouldn't exactly call it classy. But anyway, we'll save that for the play on the field. He also says 6 of the best American soccer players came from St. Louis on the 50s team from the World Cup. So a lot of history there in St. Louis, definitely. Thanks, Rocky, for filling us in on that one. So speaking of the aforementioned rivalries, I'm looking to Chicago, Columbus, and Nashville to really welcome St. Louis into the league, and hopefully they do it with that same kind of vitriol that we see with the NHL rivalries with the Preds, the Blue Jackets, and the Blackhawks. So St. Louis, welcome. You got to win me over a little bit more than you did with your crest, so hopefully the style of play on the field is appealing, and we're going to keep looking out for any developments as to who comes into their front office, coaching staff, player signings, and things of that nature. As a reminder, the current St. Louis USL team is a completely separate entity. This is a new ownership group starting a new club. They are not affiliated with the current St. Louis team in the USL. So with that kind of wraps up the headlines and all the news from around the league that I want to get to tonight. And I'm sure there's tons more out there. If there's anything you as listeners and viewers want to hear, hit us up at SOP Soccer, or again, podcast at sonsofapitchsoccer.com is the email address. I do want to take this time to thank our sponsors, the fine people over at Donovan Food Brokerage. You guys have supported us pretty much from day one when we were, recording episodes in Mike's camper in my garage with, not the great technological backgrounds that we've got here, the cool blue screen graphics. Honestly, we couldn't mess up my microphone earlier if it wasn't for your sponsorship getting us the great equipment to have. So I want to thank Donovan Food Brokerage, a sales and marketing firm focusing on food service sales in the Midwest. So if you are in the industry, look them up, donovanfoodbrokerage.com. They do K through 12, they do vending, they do transport and storage. They will take care of all your food service needs. We also want to thank Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. Icelandic spring water available at your local Walgreens. I know Mike always has a bottle close by just to keep himself hydrated. And we also want to thank for sponsoring some of our live streams and our YouTube videos, Skira Icelandic Spring Water, the official, unofficial hydration break sponsor of us here at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. You can get Skira Icelandic Spring Water at any local 7-Eleven. So thank you to our sponsors. We appreciate that. And if any of our listeners or viewers want to get on board with our podcast, get into American soccer or podcasting in general, please reach out to us, podcast at sonsofapitchsoccer.com, or direct message us on Twitter at SOP Soccer, and we're more than happy to discuss a possible sponsorship in the future. Thank you for staying tuned for all of that. Now let's get back into listener question from Daniel Young. Daniel, hopefully you're out there. Haven't seen you jump on yet in our chat here. But he asked us this question about some of the big CONCACAF names playing overseas. Specifically, what are your thoughts on Tyler Adams and Alphonso Davies' performances in the UEFA Champions League quarterfinals? Nothing short of amazing, right? Adams gets the goal. Some are saying it's the biggest club goal for an American player ever. Meanwhile, Davies just has as a monster of a game. I can't remember if he scored. I know he assisted at least once as Bayern spanks Atletico Madrid, or I'm sorry, Bayern spanked Barcelona 8-2. Meanwhile, RB Leipzig knocks out Atletico Madrid 2-1. So you've got the Austrian team, and you've got Leipzig and Bayern. You got a couple of German teams here who are knocking out the Spanish giants, right, in Barcelona and then Atletico, kind of the third team there. A lot of people are saying this is signifying a shift in the way the game is played, to see these German teams dominating and defeating these Spanish teams. I don't know if I'd go that far yet. I mean, soccer is always constantly evolving, and you know what, if these teams are going to dominate the Spanish league year in and year out, why haven't the other Spanish teams tried something different yet? So I'm not about to jump on board the whole the paradigm is shifting. We're witnessing a new change in the evolution of soccer. But you know what? The Spanish teams have to figure something out, because they have not been faring very well in some of these international club tournaments over the last 3 years. Anyway, back to the question, Davies and Adams. What does this really mean? I mean, like, what's the impact here? Like, those guys had great games. They're playing on great teams. There's a lot of other people who are playing and having great success with Bayern and Leipzig here. But what does this mean for those two guys, and what does this mean for us as Americans, Canadians, as CONCACAF fans? I mean, first of all, let's look at the individual accolades here for Tyler Adams. He could be the first American to win a UEFA Champions League since... Does anyone know this? I had to look it up and read a few articles. Jovan Kirovski won UEFA Champions League in '97 with Borussia Dortmund. Kirovski, an American of Macedonian descent, North Macedonian descent, living out in California, played with the U.S. national team, but ended up winning a Champions League with Borussia Dortmund, 23 years ago. Wow. Bit of a drought for Americans to be playing at the highest level. So to have Tyler Adams possibly in the finals and have him potentially winning a Champions League is just amazing, right? First of all, an MLS club hasn't won the CONCACAF Champions League in its current iteration. You know, perhaps there's some American players on some of the Mexican club teams that have won it. None come to mind, so I'm not sure about that. But to have an American win the biggest club competition essentially in the world would be huge. However, Tyler Adams still has a way to go until he kind of gets to the level of some of the other American greats. I mean, right? He's only been with his team for a season or two. He's only been at this highest stage for a season or two. Meanwhile, you've got DeMarcus Beasley, who had 27 appearances in Champions League between PSV Eindhoven and Rangers. Jermaine Jones, also with 27 appearances between Leverkusen and Schalke. Pulisic, as young as he is, has 26 Champions League appearances between Dortmund and Chelsea. Sasha Kljestan, the oft-forgotten and maligned Sasha Kljestan, had 20 appearances in the Champions League with Anderlecht, and Claudio Reyna, taking it back a little bit further, 17 Champions League appearances with Rangers. So Adams has a way to go to get to that stage. But between him and Davies, to me, this means that if you are a major club, if you are a power, or if you are looking to elevate your club to the next level, kind of a la Man City several years back when they're just going to start dumping money and buying up everybody and seeing who they can get, you got to scout the United States and you've got to scout Canada. No more can you come over here and just pluck a goalie and then, be okay. You really have to do your diligence. So to me, that's the first thing, is that you are going to get a lot more eyeballs from Europe, from South America, especially from China, if they're going to be throwing money at their league. I know they put some restrictions on that, and they've got some roster rules about, you must have so many Chinese players on a roster. I don't know if Japan has similar rules, but you could start to see some more money coming from Japan, the Japanese league. You got to scout. You got to scout CONCACAF, right? And on top of it, you've got tons of guys from some of the Caribbean and Central American countries who are playing in the USL, who are going to be affiliated with these MLS clubs, who could break in that way. Again, something I love about American soccer. There's more than one way to get to the highest level. You don't just have to get in with a club when you're 8 or 9, prove yourself by age 12, 16, and then work your way up. There's so many pathways to get to top flight in the United States, and then use that as a springboard if you want to go overseas. Again, these clubs have to scout it. So how are they going to do that? What are they just going to send scouts to every MLS game? They're just going to have people constantly watching all sorts of game footage? Are they going to have people tuning into podcasts like ours to make sure that, we're not talking about a player that they don't know yet? First of all, that would be great. I really hope that's the case. But I really don't think that's exactly what's going to happen. If there are any international scouts out there listening, come on, give me a call. Hit us up on Twitter at SOP Soccer. We'll be happy to talk. We'll give you all the insight. We know what's going on here. And you know what? My co-host Mike, when he's back on the show, he's got your Canada insight. He's definitely plugged in with TFC. He knows some people. So we'll give you the inside scoop. Anyway, just on the off chance any of them were listening. But the reality is, they're going to have to set up either scouting network or develop partnerships, and that seems to be the way things are going right now. They're developing partnerships. Obviously, scouts are going to come over. We have different seasons than most of the rest of the world. Us playing over the MLS playing over the summer, where most of the rest of the world is playing fall to spring, or you have some of the South American and Central American leagues playing the Clausura, Apertura, the spring and the fall league, and then kind of having a champion of champions round robin 4-team type of thing sometimes to determine the winner of their leagues. So these partnerships, what do they entail? Now, we do know that FC Dallas had a partnership, or has a partnership with Bayern Munich. Now, really, at first it was just like, okay, Bayern's going to send their young guys over here to get some minutes, and Dallas might be able to sell a couple guys over to Bayern because they got the inside scoop, and Bayern profits with experience, Dallas profits with dollars, right? But it's becoming more than that. These clubs are now going overseas to train together. The coaching staffs are learning more techniques, tactics. You're getting a lot more of the training specifics, player nutrition, player fitness, data and tracking and advanced metrics in soccer. That's the next big thing. Like, this is what we're getting at. And these clubs, Bayern Munich, one of the biggest clubs in the world, is sharing some of that with FC Dallas here in the MLS. To me, that's going to be the biggest impact. Not so much the players like Adams or Davies being sold for big money and just kind of pumping money in, because you can spend money and miss and keep just poorly spending your money. But when you really develop a partnership with some of these amazing clubs and learn how they operate and what sets them apart from the rest of their league and from the rest of their continent, that's going to be the biggest impact for me. And hopefully FC Dallas is going to start to see the fruits of that partnership pay off in the short term. Pay off a little bit more in the long term. It'd be great if it paid off in the short term, right? Additionally, we start to see major ownership groups getting involved in the United States and finding talent that way. Obviously, New York City, owned by City Football Group, the same ownership group of Manchester United, Manchester City, excuse me, a little faux pas there. Manchester City over in England in the Premier League. They also own teams in Australia, Uruguay, India, Belgium, Spain, China, and Japan. So they're casting a wide scouting net, and you have to. You've got to cast the widest net possible. So you've got City Football Group with an imprint in New York, one of the biggest cities in the world, and one of the most soccer-crazed cities in the world, probably. You already saw Jack Harris. I think it was Jack Harrison. If I'm butchering the name, if I'm remembering the wrong guy, please forgive me. But you've seen players come up through New York City's academy and then get funneled over to Europe, put out on loan. And you know what? If it doesn't benefit New York City FC, and if it doesn't benefit Manchester City, their top club, it still benefits Americans playing the game of soccer. It still benefits our league. It still benefits our national team, because you get a more experienced and deeper player pool competing for that starting 11, competing to get on that 23-man roster. So that's what it means. And then again, similarly, across town, Red Bulls. That organization has teams in New York. obviously, Leipzig, Salzburg, and Liefering in Austria, and Red Bulls even has a club in Brazil, I'm pretty sure. So they are casting that wide scouting net. So it wouldn't surprise me if you start to see a lot more Red Bull Academy players moving up and on overseas and eventually getting opportunities like Tyler Adams. So to me, as great as it is to see these two individual players in Davies and Adams excelling at the highest stage that a club team can play in, it is going to, I think, have a broader impact on how the world views, CONCACAF players, as well as how it can impact the MLS, the structures, the development. And we have seen the new development academy structure that's kind of being developed right now, across the 100-some club teams. So that's what we're looking at. That's the big effect on it. So Daniel Young, that was probably a lot longer of an answer than you wanted to hear from me. But anyway, we're going to leave it at that. But speaking of Americans abroad, we got to touch on Reggie Cannon, who supposedly the deal is all but done for him to move to English Championship side Barnsley. They made an offer. It's likely he's going to accept it. Additionally, the CEO of Barnsley is Dan Murphy, a former midfielder with DC and the New York Cosmos. Additionally, Billy Beane, as made famous by his Moneyball approach, is a minority owner in Barnsley. So there is an American connection there. You know what? If Reggie Cannon gets over there and excels at Barnsley, and hey, maybe they move up into the Premier League, or maybe he gets bought by a bigger club. There's a lot of teams who've had their eye on him overseas. It's great. Let's get him over there. Let's up the competition a little bit, and then let's see if he can't leverage that into a bigger team, more competition, continue to grow, continue to develop, and then bring it all back to the U.S. national team. I'm going to keep it selfish there for a little bit. Anyway, so that is kind of our international thing. The last little bit of silliness I want to do here, we're approaching the 40-minute mark. This is just something that we had going back and forth with the Designated Players podcast on our Twitter feed, and it has to do with mascot fights. Yes, mascot fights. We were talking about who would win in a fight if you had all the mascots in the MLS together. The DP Players podcast, they went with Timber Joy. And assuming he gets his chainsaw, it's a pretty obvious decision there that he's going to win any sort of cage match or any sort of brawl or tournament-style fight-off between all of these mascots. But you know what? Just to throw a little something out there, this is what I put together here for everybody as far as the mascots that are out there who might win in some sort of mascot brawl. Obviously, the contenders, Timber Joey with that just ridiculously powerful chainsaw. But hey, you know what? Leo the Lion there from Real Salt Lake, he looks like he does not want to be messed with. And then I'm going to throw Fang in there from Philly, because man, if that snake gets his coils around you and those fangs in you, could be over sooner rather than later. So those are my contenders for the MLS mascot fight to the death that were playing out on Twitter the other night. Some of the underdogs, I think we have to go with Kingston, the Orlando City Lion, assuming he's not under the influence of something, because just look at those dreadlocks, look at those bags under his eyes, you never know. Additionally, I'm going to give kind of an underdog status to Talon of DC United and Gary, the Lion of FC Cincinnati. I mean, he is a lion, but he looks just like such a friendly lion. He's got his crown on top of his head. Then again, how did he get that crown? We don't know. I'm sure it just wasn't given to him. Crowns are earned. Anyway, some of the guys I think have no chance. Cosmo, the LA Galaxy mascot there. Yeah, he's more of a good luck charm for the Galaxy. This alien who has come to our planet to learn soccer. As well as, I've never seen this guy before, Tactic in Montreal. It's a dog. Its tongue is out. It's got some interesting shorts there. But I just don't think, they say it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. I don't know if Tactic's got either one there. But anyway, Montreal fans, let me know if you've ever had a run-in with Tactic, down a dark part of the concourse at Stade Saputo over there. Anyway, everyone, with that little bit of silliness and with that little bit of goofiness, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in, who's listening. Sorry for any of the technical issues we may have had starting off with the sound. I do appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks for everyone for letting us know about the mic issues. But I want to especially thank our listeners for supporting us, for bending an ear every week to our talk, for joining the conversation, because that's really what we want to do. We want to grow the sport here through conversation. We also especially want to thank our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage, Nice Premium Iceland Spring Water, and Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Thank you for helping us do what we do. Mike, if you're still out there, man, miss you. Hope to get you back on soon. And you know what? When you come back, I'm sure everything will just go off without a hitch. And we can just get back to rolling and covering the MLS and the American soccer landscape. So thanks to everyone. Rocky, thank you for jumping on. Thanks, Daniel Young, for your question this week. We will be back. Same SOP time, same SOP channel next Monday night. Until then, everyone, take care, stay safe, and enjoy the matches.